Have you ever noticed how your healthiest, most vibrant strawberry plant can suddenly look like it is dying of thirst overnight, even when the soil is perfectly damp? It is one of the most heartbreaking moments for any gardener. But what if I told you the problem is not the sun, not the water, and not a disease? The real threat is a silent, hungry monster hiding entirely out of sight, right beneath the soil. Today we are diving deep into the dirt to uncover the secret life of the May beetle larva, also known as the white grub. I promise you, by the end of this video, you will learn the absolute foolproof tricks to spot this hidden enemy before it destroys your entire harvest. But I am curious, have you ever lost a perfectly good plant overnight and had no idea why? Let me know in the comments below, because you might have been a victim of this pest without even knowing it. To truly defeat an enemy, you have to understand its history and how it operates. The white grub is not a new problem. For centuries, farmers and gardeners have battled these thick, ugly pests. These grubs are actually the larval stage of the May beetle, those heavy, clumsy brown bugs that bump into your windows on warm spring nights. Historically, these beetles evolved to lay their eggs in open grasslands and rich pastures, where their babies could safely feed on endless wild grass roots for years. But as we transformed wild meadows into cultivated gardens and lush strawberry beds, we accidentally created the ultimate luxury buffet for them. Because our garden soil is soft, consistently watered, and packed with delicate, sweet roots, it has become the perfect nursery for these pests to thrive in massive numbers. Have you ever walked out to your beautiful strawberry patch on a sunny morning, only to find that one of your biggest, healthiest plants suddenly looks completely exhausted? The leaves are drooping, the stems are bending, and the whole plant just looks sad. This is the very first and most confusing sign of a hidden problem. It is easy to think that the plant just needs a little bit of water. But here is the catch. If you water that sad strawberry plant, and it still looks wilted by the evening or the next morning, you have a much bigger issue. The plant is not thirsty because the soil is dry. It is thirsty because it literally has no way to drink. Something underneath the soil is actively chewing away at the root system. Think of the roots like tiny straws that pull water up into the leaves. If those straws are cut off by a hungry white grub, you could flood the bed with water, and the plant will still slowly die of thirst. This sudden, unexplained wilting of a single plant right next to perfectly healthy plants is your absolute biggest red flag. It tells you that the danger is not in the air, not in the sun, but hiding silently in the dirt right beneath your feet. So, you have spotted a wilted plant, and you watered it but nothing changed. Now it is time to get your hands dirty and do what we call the strawberry pull test. This is a very simple physical check that will tell you almost instantly if a grub has been feasting on your garden. Walk over to that sad, drooping plant. Gently take hold of the main crown of the plant, right where the stems meet the soil. Now, give it a very light, gentle tug straight up. Do not pull hard enough to rip out a healthy plant. Just a little pressure. A healthy strawberry plant has a deep, strong, and wide root system that anchors it firmly into the earth. It will resist your pull. But if a May beetle larva has been living under there, it has likely eaten away all the main anchor roots. When you pull gently, the entire plant might just pop right out of the ground with almost zero resistance. It feels exactly like picking up a loose stone. When you look at the bottom of the plant, you will see a flat, chewed-off base instead of long, trailing roots. It is a heartbreaking sight, but it is the ultimate proof that a pest has severed the lifeline of your crop. Sometimes the damage is not an overnight disaster. Sometimes it happens in slow motion, which can be even more frustrating to figure out. Imagine watching your strawberry patch wake up in the spring. Most of the plants are pushing out bright green leaves and getting bushy. But you notice a few plants that just seem frozen in time. They are not growing. Their leaves are incredibly small, and instead of a vibrant green, they have a sickly pale yellow, or even a reddish tint to them. Many gardeners see this and immediately think they need to add fertilizer. They think the soil lacks nitrogen or iron, but if you have been feeding your soil properly and only a few plants look sick, do not reach for the fertilizer bag just yet. This stunted growth is a classic sign of a partial root loss caused by a young, growing white grub. The grub might not have eaten all the roots yet, but it has eaten enough to put the plant into survival mode. The strawberry plant stops focusing on growing new leaves or making fruit. Instead, it is just trying to stay alive with the fraction of roots it has left. It is essentially starving while surrounded by perfectly good soil. If you are going to hunt for this underground villain, you need to know exactly what it looks like. Let us paint a clear picture of the May beetle larva, also known simply as a white grub. When you finally uncover one in the soil, the first thing you will notice is its shape. It almost always curls up into a perfect letter C when it is disturbed. It is quite a plump, fleshy creature, and the body is a creamy white or slightly greyish color. But the two most distinctive features are at the ends of its body. At the front, it has a very hard, distinctively brown or copper-colored head. That hard head houses the powerful jaws it uses to slice through your tough strawberry roots. Right behind the head, you will see 3 pairs of short, stubby little legs. Now look at the very back end of the grub. It usually looks dark grey or almost black. That is actually the soil and digested plant matter inside its digestive tract, showing through its slightly transparent skin. Depending on its age, this grub can be as small as a grain of rice or as large and thick as your thumb. Seeing this C-shaped, brown-headed creature is your absolute confirmation of the enemy. To truly outsmart this pest, you have to understand its timeline. The May beetle larva does not just appear magically to ruin your summer, it is actually part of a multi-year cycle. When the adult beetles fly around your porch lights in late spring, they are also mating and laying eggs right into the soft, rich soil of your garden beds. Those eggs hatch into tiny grubs by mid-summer. In their first year, these babies are small and do not eat very much, so you might not even notice them. But then winter comes. They dig deep down below the frost line to stay warm and sleep. When spring arrives and the soil warms up, they wake up very, very hungry. This is their second year of life, and this is when the absolute worst damage happens to your strawberries. They are bigger, they are stronger, and they eat continuously through the spring and summer. They will spend a whole second winter underground, and sometimes even a third spring feeding before they finally turn into a pupa and emerge as an adult beetle. Knowing that these grubs live in the soil for up to 3 years explains why a strawberry bed can suddenly fail in its second or third season. Nature has a way of leaving clues if you know how to read them. One of the most obvious signs that you have a white grub infestation has nothing to do with the strawberry plants themselves. It has to do with the local wildlife. Birds, skunks, raccoons, and crows think that big, fat, white grubs are the ultimate gourmet snack. They are packed with protein. If you wake up one morning and find that the mulch around your strawberries has been aggressively tossed aside, or you see shallow, messy holes dug all over the garden bed, you should pay close attention. Crows will walk through the rows, violently stabbing their beaks into the soil to pull out the grubs. Skunks are even less polite. A skunk will literally roll back the turf and dig up your precious strawberry plants just to get to the juicy larvae hiding underneath. So, if your garden suddenly looks like a construction zone, and you notice wildlife taking an unusual interest in walking through your strawberry patch every single day, they are probably trying to tell you something. They are actively hunting the very pests that are secretly destroying your crop from the inside out. Let us talk about another group of animals that will gladly point out a grub problem, although they will cause a huge mess while doing it. Moles and voles. If you start seeing raised tunnels winding their way right through the middle of your strawberry beds, your first instinct might be to panic about the mole. But you have to ask yourself a very important question. Why is the mole tunneling there in the first place? Moles are insectivores. They do not eat plant roots. They eat insects, earthworms, and their absolute favorite meal is the plump white grub. A mole will actively seek out areas of the soil that have a high concentration of grubs. So, while the mole is certainly lifting up your plants and exposing the roots to dry air, the mole is actually a symptom of the underlying disease. The disease is the grub infestation. If you trap the mole but ignore why it was there, your strawberries will still die because the remaining grubs will just keep eating. Seeing those raised dirt ridges running parallel to your strawberry rows is a massive, flashing warning sign that your soil is currently serving as an all-you-can-eat buffet for underground pests. Now we are moving on to the most definitive way to know for sure. The digging test. You cannot just guess if you have grubs, you have to look for them, but you have to do it smartly. Do not just dig a random hole in the middle of the walkway. You need to target the exact zone where the crime is happening. Find a strawberry plant that is showing those early signs of wilting or stunted growth that we talked about earlier. You want to focus on the area right at the edge of the root zone of that specific plant. Take a small garden trowel, not a giant shovel because you want to be precise. You are going to dig a circle about 6 inches away from the main crown of the plant. Think of it like drawing a halo around the strawberry. The reason we dig here is because the grubs are usually actively feeding on the outer edges of the fresh roots, moving inward. If you dig directly under the plant right away, you might slice right through the roots you are trying to save. By starting at the perimeter and slowly working your way inward, you give yourself the best chance to catch the culprit in the act without doing unnecessary damage to the plant. Once you have established your digging zone around the struggling strawberry plant, it is time to look closely at the soil you are pulling up. Go down about 4 to 6 inches deep. That is the sweet spot where these larvae love to hang out during the active growing season. As you scoop the dirt out, do not just toss it aside. Pour it into a light-colored plastic bucket or onto a piece of cardboard. Now, take your hands or a small stick and literally sift through that dirt. Break apart any clumps of soil. You are looking for that distinct creamy white, C-shaped body with the brown head. It is incredibly important to check the soil clinging to the roots as well. Sometimes the grub will hold on tight to a root thread even as you pull the dirt away. If you find one grub in a 3-foot square area, that is normal nature. Do not panic. But if you dig around one plant and you find 3, 4, or 5 of these plump white larvae squirming around, you have crossed the threshold from a minor annoyance to a severe infestation. That number tells you that the population is high enough to completely wipe out your strawberry harvest if you do not take action quickly. Let us take a quick pause to bust a very common gardening myth. When people suspect they have bugs in the soil, they rush to the internet, and they often find advice telling them to sprinkle crushed eggshells or used coffee grounds around the base of their plants. The idea is that the eggshells will cut the soft bodies of the grubs, or the coffee will repel them. I need to save you some time and frustration right now. This does not work for May beetle larvae. Remember, these grubs live completely underground. They do not crawl on the surface of the soil like slugs or snails do. Sprinkling sharp eggshells on top of the dirt does absolutely nothing to a grub that is happily chewing on roots 4 inches below the surface. And while coffee grounds are fantastic for adding organic matter to your compost pile, they do not possess any magical chemical properties that will make a hungry grub pack its bags and leave. Relying on these home remedies while your plants are actively dying is a huge mistake. By the time you realize the coffee grounds are not working, the grubs will have already consumed the entire root system of your favorite strawberry variety. If you do not want to dig up your garden blindly, there is a very clever, old-school farmer trick you can use to confirm the presence of these pests. It is called the potato trap method. Grubs love the sweet, starchy roots of strawberry plants, but they also absolutely love raw potatoes. Here is how you do it. Take a regular raw potato and cut it into slices that are about an inch thick. You do not need to peel them. Take a stick and push it through the potato slice so that you have a little handle sticking up. Now, bury that potato slice about 3 or 4 inches deep into the soil, right next to your strawberry plants, leaving the top of the stick above the ground so you can find it later. Leave it there for 2 or 3 days. The moisture and the starch from the potato will act like a magnet for any grubs living in that area. After a few days, grab the stick and pull the potato slice out of the dirt. Examine it closely. If you have a grub problem, you will likely see them physically attached to the potato, actively eating it, or you will see large, hollowed-out chew marks all over the slice. It is a brilliant, zero-damage way to spy on the underground activity.
Sometimes the best way to know what is happening under the soil is to look at what is happening above it, especially at night. The big, white, root-eating grubs do not come from nowhere. They are the teenage phase of the adult May beetle, which is sometimes called a June bug, depending on where you live. These are those large, clumsy, reddish-brown beetles that buzz loudly around your porch lights on warm spring evenings. They constantly bump into screens and windows with a heavy thud. If you notice a sudden, massive swarm of these beetles hanging around your yard in the late spring, you need to be on high alert. Where there are adult beetles, there will soon be eggs. They love to lay their eggs in sunny, well-watered areas, which perfectly describes your strawberry bed. Take a flashlight and walk out to your garden at night. If you see these large beetles landing on the soil or clinging to the leaves of the plants around your strawberries, they are likely laying the next generation of root destroyers. Spotting heavy adult beetle activity is a massive clue that you will need to check your soil for grubs about 2 months later. Understanding where these larvae physically position themselves in the soil will make finding them so much easier. They are highly sensitive to temperature and moisture. They're not always sitting right at the surface. In the early spring, when the ground is just starting to thaw, they are sluggish and usually deeper down, maybe 6 to 8 inches below the surface, slowly making their way up. During the perfect, warm, moist days of early summer, they are in absolute paradise, hanging out right in the top 2 to 4 inches of soil, where the best strawberry roots are. But here's an interesting fact. If you go through a period of extreme drought, and the top layer of your garden becomes bone dry and hot, the grubs will actually dive deeper into the earth to find moisture and escape the heat. They will retreat below the root zone temporarily. This means if you dig to check for them during a severe dry spell, you might not find any and mistakenly think your garden is safe. To get an accurate reading, always do your digging and testing a day or 2 after a good rain, when the soil is pleasantly moist and the grubs have moved back up to the feeding zone. This is a vital point where many gardeners make a huge mistake. Not all white grubs are bad. Let me repeat that because it is so important. Not all grubs will eat your strawberries. If you regularly add rich, homemade compost to your strawberry beds, you might find thick white larvae that look incredibly similar to the May beetle grub. These are often the larvae of the green fruit beetle or the Cetonus beetle. But there is a massive behavioral difference. Compost grubs eat decaying organic matter. They eat dead leaves, rotting wood, and compost. They do not eat living, healthy plant roots. So how do you tell them apart? Take the grub and put it on a flat, hard surface, like a piece of concrete. Give it a gentle poke. The destructive May beetle larva will curl tightly into a C shape and try to clumsily crawl away on its little legs. The harmless compost grub, however, has a very weird trick. It will roll over onto its back and try to wiggle or crawl away upside down, using the stiff hairs on its back for traction. If it crawls on its back, leave it alone. It is helping your soil. If it curls into a C and uses its legs, That is the enemy you need to remove. If you have completely lost a strawberry plant and it is totally dead, do not just throw it in the trash in disgust. That dead plant is a piece of forensic evidence. Pull it up completely and examine the root structure very closely under good lighting. A healthy strawberry root system looks like a dense, tangled mop of fine, stringy hairs that spread out in all directions. It should be light brown or whitish. But if a white grub has been at work, the root system will look completely mutilated. You will notice that all the fine, delicate feeder roots are completely gone. All that will be left are a few thick, woody stumps hanging off the main crown. The cuts on those remaining root stumps will look blunt and ragged, almost as if someone took a tiny pair of dull scissors and snipped them off haphazardly. Sometimes you might even see hollowed-out cavities dug directly into the bottom of the main crown itself, where the grub tried to burrow inside for a juicier meal. Looking closely at this physical damage provides undeniable proof of the specific type of chewing pest you are dealing with, eliminating other causes like root rot or fungal disease. Here is a fascinating yet frustrating visual clue that can help you identify a grub hotspot. Look at the balance of life in your garden bed. We call this the weed indicator. Strawberry plants have relatively shallow, delicate root systems. Many common garden weeds, like dandelions or deep-rooted thistles, have massive, robust taproots that dive deep into the earth. If you look at your garden and notice that your delicate strawberry plants are wilting, turning yellow, and dying off, but the weeds right next to them are absolutely thriving, bright green, and growing vigorously, you have a huge clue. The white grubs are lazy feeders. They will always go for the easiest, softest food source first. The tender, shallow roots of your strawberry plants are like a gourmet dessert to them. They will devour the strawberry roots and completely ignore the tough, woody roots of the nearby weeds. So, if you see a patch where the cultivated plants are suddenly failing, but the wild weeds are aggressively taking over, it is highly likely that an underground pest has selectively eliminated the competition. The contrast between dying crop and thriving weed is a major red flag. If you are still unsure and digging feels too invasive, there is a method used by lawn care professionals that works wonderfully in garden beds too. It is called the soapy water flush. This technique forces the grubs to reveal themselves without you having to turn over a single shovel of dirt. Take a watering can and fill it with about 2 gallons of water. Add 2 tablespoons of liquid dish soap. You want plain dish soap, not dishwasher detergent or anything with strong bleach or degreasers. Mix it up until it is just slightly bubbly. Now, pour this soapy mixture slowly and evenly over a small 2-foot by 2-foot section of the soil, right around your suspicious strawberry plants. The soap coats the soil particles and makes it very difficult for the insects underground to breathe. They panic. Within about 10 to 20 minutes, any caterpillars, worms, and most importantly, white grubs living in that top layer of soil will frantically crawl up to the surface to get fresh air. It is like an evacuation alarm. If you see 2 or more white grubs pop up out of the dirt in that small area, you have a confirmed infestation that needs immediate treatment. Timing your inspections is everything. Most gardeners pay absolute attention to their strawberries in the spring when the flowers are blooming, and in the early summer when the berries are ripening. But once the harvest is over in July, people tend to ignore the strawberry patch. This is a massive tactical error. Late summer and early fall, specifically August and September, is exactly when the newest generation of May beetle larvae are hatching from their eggs and beginning to feed. At this stage, they are very small and close to the surface, and this is when they are most vulnerable to treatments like beneficial nematodes or natural predators. If you wait until the next spring to start checking your soil, those grubs will have grown massive, thick armor and will be incredibly difficult to stop. Therefore, make it a strict habit to perform the tug test, the soapy water flush, or the digging test in late August. Look closely for signs of wilting in the late summer heat that does not improve with watering. Catching them in the fall before they dig deep for the winter is the absolute secret to ensuring your plants survive to produce fruit the following year. Many organic gardeners love the idea of companion planting to solve pest issues, and there is a lot of talk about using specific flowers to deter grubs. Let us look at the reality of this. You will often hear that planting marigolds or geraniums around your strawberries will keep the white grubs away. The truth is slightly more complicated. Geraniums are actually somewhat toxic to the adult Japanese beetles and some May beetles. When the adults eat the geranium leaves, they get paralyzed and die, which means fewer eggs laid. However, simply planting a few marigolds around the border of a raised bed will not magically force existing grubs deep in the soil to pack up and leave. But companion plants do serve one brilliant purpose. They act as an early warning system. If you plant something with extremely delicate roots next to your strawberries, and that plant suddenly wilts and dies mysteriously, it tells you that something is chewing through the soil in that specific area. Think of companion plants more as the canary in the coal mine, rather than a magical shield. They help you pinpoint where the damage is starting before it reaches your prized fruit producers. The final piece of the puzzle in identifying a grub problem actually comes from your own memory and garden history. May beetles have strong preferences for where they lay their eggs. They absolutely love undisturbed turf grass and pasture land. If you recently ripped up a section of old grassy lawn to build a brand new strawberry bed, you are almost guaranteed to have a white grub problem in your first or second year. The grubs were already living happily under the grass, and when you removed the grass and planted strawberries, you essentially just served them a fancier dinner. Keep a garden journal. If you had a terrible grub problem in a specific raised bed 2 years ago, and you were thinking about planting strawberries there now, remember that these larvae have a multi-year life cycle. There could still be a second or third-year generation lurking deep in the soil, just waiting for fresh roots. Knowing the history of what was planted, what pests were present, and whether the soil was recently converted from a lawn gives you the ultimate predictive power to know exactly when and where to start looking for these destructive hidden pests. So the biggest plot twist of all is that the true health of your strawberry patch is not determined by what you see above the ground, but by the hidden battles happening in the dark. Finding a massive white grub wrapped around the roots of your favorite plant is a shocking moment. But now you have the power to stop them. We have covered the essential signs, from the sudden, unexplained wilting and the effortless pull test to reading the clues left by digging animals and using the clever potato trap method. Remember, the key is vigilance, especially in the late summer when the new generation is just waking up. Thank you so much for watching and learning how to protect your garden with us today. If this video helped you solve a garden mystery, please hit that like button and make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into organic gardening secrets. Now, I have a question for you to answer in the comments. Have you ever tried digging around a dying plant and actually caught one of these grubs red-handed? Share your best garden detective stories down below.